Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high.
If a nuclear bomb hit Albuquerque, it would cause a fireball 3 times the temperature of the surface of the sun. It would cause winds up to 300 miles per hour. Many of our bodies would be vaporized, with our shadows left on sidewalks. Many of our bodies would be horribly burned, crushed by falling buildings, sliced by flying glass. If parents were at work and children were in school or daycare when a nuclear bomb hit Albuquerque, the children would die without their parents ever reaching them. U.S. nuclear bombs now are much larger than the bombs the U.S. used to mass murder many thousands of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the year I was born, 1945. A nuclear war between U.S. and Russia would block out the sunshine for growing food. A nuclear war between U.S. and Russia would cause 2 billion, not 2 million, 2 billion, which is 1,000 times 2 million, people to starve to death. Many nations have signed the treaty to stop more nuclear weapons, but the U.S. government strongly opposes that treaty. Sadly, the U.S. government is addicted to nuclear weapons and to war. The money the U.S. constantly spends on mass murder in wars and nuclear weapons would house all U.S. homeless people. The money the U.S. constantly spends on war and nuclear weapons would provide treatment programs for alcoholics and other drug addicts. The money the U.S. constantly spends on war and nuclear weapons would provide free medical care for everyone in this country. Would you be proud to have family members designing nuclear bombs at Sandia Weapons Lab here in Albuquerque? If a nuclear war would happen between the U.S. and Russia, Albuquerque would be one of the main targets because of Kirtland Air Force Base and Sandia Weapons Lab. Were many Germans proud to have family members working in the Nazi concentration camps and gas ovens, killing millions of people? Evil insanity. Chew or blend raw carrots to eat every day. Do not juice them. We need the fiber for good shitting. Raw carrots dissolve kidney stones. Raw carrots are great to prevent and treat cancer. Raw carrots help both diarrhea and constipation. Raw carrots help to lose fat and to remove poisons from our blood. Raw carrots lower high blood pressure, help us sleep better. Raw carrots destroy worms in our intestines. Raw carrots help all kinds of infections, colds, flu, ear, AIDS, COVID. Raw carrots are good for arthritis, rheumatism, coughs, cataracts. Raw carrots are good for digestion, for stomach ulcers, the liver, the lungs, for energy. Raw carrots are good for stronger muscles, for our adrenal glands. Raw carrots improve our skin, less acne. Several raw carrots every day give our skin a golden or copper color tint. I blend together carrots, apples, raw pumpkin seeds, and flaxseed and water. Very nutritious and very delicious smoothie. A woman writes this to make teenagers think what becoming a mother means. She said, if your child throws up all over your bed, are you or the father going to clean it up, stay up all night with a crying child, and then go to work the next day? When the baby is sick, will you cancel your plans with your friends and stay home? Will you skip buying clothes or the latest cell phone for yourself because you can barely afford food for your little one? Are you willing to give up your dreams of school or travel because the child you gave birth to will grow up and need shoes, an education, or medical care? Are you prepared for when this cute, cuddly infant becomes a screaming 2-year-old? If you continue your education, will you have the energy to work and care for a child who totally depends on you for all physical and emotional needs? And most important of all, can you handle all this alone if suddenly the father decides he's not ready for the responsibility? Signed, waited till I was old enough and glad of it. A single parent writes, are you emotionally, physically, and financially ready if you have a premature or handicapped baby? She says, I am the parent of a severely handicapped son. His twin sister has ADHD, and by God's grace and just dumb luck, I am handling it well so far, from flying solo in South Dakota. From a wise mom in Alabama, parents need a sense of humor, an infinite amount of patience and thick skin. Children take the longest time eating, using the bathroom, telling a story, asking a question, etc., and there will be many occasions when they will tell you that you are the meanest mommy or daddy, or that they hate you. Can you handle it with grace, firmness, and patience? From someone in Michigan, my question is, can you provide a safe environment to raise the child? One of the biggest dangers to young children is abuse. Having heard so many stories about young parents shaking babies that won't stop crying, or worse, this should be carefully considered before becoming a parent. I was circumcised as a baby. I sure as hell wish I had not been circumcised. Circumcising baby boys is raping them with a knife. Circumcising baby boys is government-approved sexual torture. Circumcising baby boys is child abuse committed by doctors. Circumcising baby boys is permanent body mutilation approved by parents. Circumcising baby boys is a stupid, brutal tradition. Every child, boy or girl, has a human right to his or her own whole body with nothing chopped off. The penis is for giving and receiving pleasure, but the baby boy coming from the comfort and the safety of mama's womb soon suffers violence and severe pain on his very sensitive penis. In the late 1800s in the United States, many medical doctors damned masturbation. They said it caused many sicknesses. What bullshit. But they were looked up to as experts. And these same medical doctors praised circumcision as the miracle cure for masturbation. What crazy stupidity from some so-called medical experts. And I wonder how many things that are considered truth today from the medical experts 100 years from now, a couple hundred years ago, if human beings survive, will the people then in the future will look back and say, what crazy stupidity. The foreskin of the penis is loaded with nerves for more sexual pleasure. The foreskin also protects the head of the penis. And after circumcision chops off that foreskin, the head of the penis gradually builds up extra layers of cells to protect itself because of the missing foreskin. So the result of circumcision is less sensitivity, less pleasure in sex. I wish my parents had never had me circumcised as a baby, but sadly, they did not know better. The vast majority of the world's men are not circumcised. The vast majority. About half of U.S. baby boys are now left without their foreskin being chopped off. The foreskin includes thousands of specialized pleasure-receptive fine-touch nerve endings. And I remember many years ago, Jose, bisexual from Mexico, whom I was in love with and made love with more times than any other man in my life. After he would come, he was so sensitive that he wanted me to stop sucking on his cock. I wish I were that sensitive. He had his foreskin. He had not been circumcised, fortunately. Foreskin feels really good. Circumcision permanently lessens the sexual feelings for both men and women who are having sex with a man circumcised. Very few healthy adult men who are not circumcised choose circumcision as adults. And no national medical association in the United States or anywhere on earth recommends routine circumcision of baby boys. Many medical associations condemn it. Foreskin restoration can non-surgically reverse some of the sexual damage of circumcision. And this card has the same area as the adult foreskin lost to circumcision. 15 square inches. 15 square inches of wonderful sexual pleasure that is gone when baby boys are circumcised. Nehemiah Griego was a severely abused 15-year-old. Nehemiah murdered his mother, his dad, his two younger sisters, his one younger brother, January 18th, 2013, almost 9 years ago, in Albuquerque's South Valley. After being arrested, 15-year-old Nehemiah did very well at juvenile detention until he was 21. His aunt, his uncle, had offered to pay for his treatment after he turned 21 at an adult treatment center in Houston. That center had already accepted him. But tragically, the judge here in Albuquerque sent Nehemiah to prison instead of adult treatment. And now I'll read from my June 20th letter that I wrote to the judge, but I have received no reply. No reply. Judge, I'm a 76-year-old longtime activist on many concerns. I'm deeply indebted to a great variety of people who have loved me, taught me, inspired me. I'm writing to you concerning Nehemiah Griego. See the photo of him with article June 17th, Albuquerque Journal, pages 7 and 8. Have you ever seen a photo of anyone appearing more hopeless and tormented in hell? I commend the excellent front page column, March 26th, in the Albuquerque Journal by Jolene Gutierrez Kruger about Nehemiah and his aunt, Regina Griego. I urge you to read Regina's heart-wrenching book, Sins of the System, Trauma, Guns, Tragedy, and the Betrayal of Our Children. The local library has 5 copies of that book. Judge, If my dad had often beaten me at least once to unconsciousness with possible brain injury, if my mother had told me, I wish we lived in biblical times so I could stone you to death, if I had been forbidden to have friends outside of church, if our home had had many guns, if my dad had taught me to be tough and had glorified being a soldier, if I had often suffered hunger with not enough to eat, if my dad had made me patrol our high-walled compound several hours a day, might I, at 15, have felt hopelessly trapped and exploded in evil rage? Judge, none of us, including you and me, can say for sure if we had suffered the severe abuse Nehemiah did, we would not have done the evil he did. No one is born evil. No one is born evil. We all are very influenceable from the moment we are born. None of us chose the family we were born into. When Nehemiah was in juvenile detention, he went from third grade reading level when arrested at 15 to getting his GED, taking college courses, reading a lot. He wanted someday to help other abused kids heal from their abuse. He got along well with staff and with other kids there in juvenile detention. Regina and other relatives had offered an alternative to prison, a public adult treatment center mental health co-op in Houston, and were willing to pay for that. The center had already accepted him. Now, in a North Carolina prison, he has been stabbed 8 times so far. He is scared to death. How would you, judge, have wanted a judge to decide if Nehemiah had been your beloved nephew or cousin? I spoke in 2019 before the City Council and the County Commission. I urged treatment for Nehemiah Griego, not prison. We all are more than the worst thing we ever did. June 25th, 1976, my grandparents, 85 and 82 years old, were murdered in bed by an abused white youth, Dale, 18 years old, in rural Illinois. And years later, Dale was arrested and pled guilty. The jail chaplain told me Dale was coming to services, so I thought Dale might be truly repentant for his crime. I wrote him offering my forgiveness. The first time I visited Dale in prison, tears came to his eyes. He appreciated my forgiveness and friendship. I have 60 letters he wrote me before he killed himself in prison. He had wanted to get out someday and prove to people he could live a changed life. Gale published sincere letters of apology in 2 area newspapers, but he suffered severe depression, haunted by flashbacks of his crime. Imagine if many U.S. presidents and generals publicly repented for murdering grandparents and kids in U.S. wars. Memory is the worst punishment for anyone with a conscience. Our conscience is turned on by being loved. Judge, a public defender I spoke with, had become a close friend to Nehemiah. He strongly wanted treatment for Nehemiah, not prison. Nehemiah is 25, and if he lives, will not be eligible for parole until 52, 27 years. More years than he has lived. Judge, do you regret sending Nehemiah to prison instead of adult treatment in Houston? Even if you cannot legally undo the severe harm you have done to Nehemiah, are you willing to make a sincere public apology to Nehemiah and his faithful friend and guardian, Regina? If I had my life to live over knowing what I know now, I would aim to do many things differently. My pre-recorded TV program on public access cable channel 27 focuses on Nehemiah. In the episode number 72, at Don Schrader, Clearly from My Heart on YouTube. Episode 72 at Don Schrader, Clearly from My Heart on YouTube, focuses on Nehemiah Griego. I have received no reply from the judge. Every day in my blended smoothies, my main smoothies that have over 20 ingredients, garlic is number 1 of the herbs in those smoothies. Never cook garlic. Raw garlic is great for the immune system to fight off all bad germs. Antibiotic drugs often kill the good germs along with the bad germs. I take no prescribed antibiotics, no prescription medicines at all for many, many years. Garlic kills only the bad germs. Garlic helps the good germs that we need to live, to digest our food. Garlic helps arthritis, high and low blood pressure. Garlic helps colds, flu, congestion. Garlic helps cough, earache, diabetes, gangrene, hepatitis, herpes. Garlic helps all infections, tuberculosis, AIDS, pneumonia. Garlic helps heart disease. Garlic helps insomnia so you get good sleep. Garlic helps pneumonia. Garlic prevents and gets rid of worms. People who eat the most garlic have the least risk of cancer. Garlic is good for sex. Eat only raw garlic, not cooked, if you want the best results. Each garlic bulb has sections called cloves, and depending on the size of the cloves, I eat 4 to 12 cloves in my blended smoothies every day. Lots of raw garlic plus extra hot red chili powder becomes nature's good penicillin to prevent and stop all infections. Over 100 years ago, one Oklahoma cowboy in the early 1900s remembered how the trail boss urged every cowboy to pair off with another man. The trail boss urged, always take another puncher along with you. In a cow outfit, you and your fellows are members one of another. And in his private letters, this Oklahoma cowboy from the early 1900s confessed that these partnerships often became sexual eventually. At first, the two cowboys would comfort each other shyly, and as they became less shy, they would masturbate each other. And when the two cowboys trusted and liked each other more, they would move on to sucking each other's cock. This Oklahoma cowboy in the early 1900s said sex on the range between cowboys was mostly masturbating each other and sucking each other's cock. Attraction for another cowboy was at first rooted in admiration, infatuation, a sensed need for a buddy, loneliness, and yearning, but it often ripened into love. Another man in the early 1900s worked in an isolated all-male Western logging camp. The group of 9 men in this camp were snowed in for months during the severe winter, and 7 of those 9 men engaged in sex with men. Most of them preferred fucking each other. I love passionate sex with certain lean, healthy, honest, dependable men if they are attracted to me and if I'm attracted to them. After the Gulf War, a large Albuquerque fundamentalist Christian church held a rally celebrating U.S. victory in Iraq. And I went to that rally. I think it was in 1991. I held my sign strongly opposing war. And a man there at the rally told me, "Blessed is he who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rocks." This is an awful actual verse from the Psalms in the Bible. Many Christian fundamentalists believe the Bible is the perfect Word of God. And many Muslim fundamentalists believe the Quran is the perfect Word of God. Some Muslim fundamentalists use verses from the Quran to justify their bloody atrocities. And some Christian fundamentalists use verses from the Bible to justify evil U.S. wars. I highly recommend the great book in our city library entitled The Atheist Muslim. A Journey from Religion to Reason by Ali, that's A-L-I, middle initial A, last name Rizzi, R-I-Z as in zebra, V as in victory, I. The title of the book again, The Atheist Muslim, A Journey from Religion to Reason. And this book is honest, heartfelt, very personal. And sadly, both the Bible and the Quran contain many terrible verses advocating war, violence, and other evils in God's name. I was a sincere Christian preacher 56 years ago, but I am no longer a believer. I identify deeply with this author of The Atheist Muslim in his long journey from religion to reason. I refuse to allow the Bible or the Quran or any book to turn off my mind and to harden my heart. Tobias Schneebaum, who was a gay, Jewish American who studied for many years different cultures, writes in his book, Where the Spirits Dwell, is the title, Where the Spirits Dwell. He writes from his experience in Southeast Asia. He says, 2 young men were responsible for taking me regularly into the swamp to bathe. I learned years later that they were bond friends, put together to strengthen clan ties by their parents when they were just beginning to walk. Koss had seen me washing in the mud and salt water near the house and had told Kokorai and Amer to take me to sweeter water. They were in their mid-teens, slender, without the powerful arms, shoulders, and chest muscles they would develop within a few years from paddling every day. They were always in good humor, full of laughter, amusing anecdotes and information. And Tobias Schneebaum, this Jewish American who studied many cultures, says, we bathed amidst huge yellow water lilies in swamp water, black yet clear. The boys had never seen soap before, luxuriated in lathering themselves. They soaped their bodies again and again, using up most of a bar each time we went out. They enjoyed the sensuality of it, always immediately showed erections. And not at all put off by my presence, Kokorai leaned onto the bent back of a mare, pushed his penis into him, and pumped away enthusiastically. Within a few minutes, they reversed roles. The details of the relationship between bond friends in parts of Asmat in Southeast Asia had been unknown to outsiders. That this one aspect was revealed to me, says Tobias Schneebaum, the gay Jewish anthropologist, revealed to me so easily and so directly, spoke of something about me that the men recognized, some overt gesture on my part, some restlessness seen in my eyes or filtering through my skin. The missionary of the region was on leave then, and sexual solace, freedom, pervaded the villages in which he preached, though the jungle had always been reserved for what the people thought of as their normal lives since the arrival of the mission, in acting out their desires so spontaneously, with me looking on, Amer and Kokori demonstrated that they knew I was sympathetic, possibly a participator. The intimacy between Amer and Kokori demonstrated the intimacy between Amer and Kokori was the first tangible evidence of the behavior that I had expected to find in Asmat, and it gave me a sense of acceptance, feeling at home. I no longer felt isolated as I inevitably felt under Western concepts that denounced such practices. And I had entered into them, had been part of them. In other words, intimacy between men in Peru, Thailand, Mexico, Japan, Korea, Uganda, Kenya, and elsewhere. It was as if homosexual relations existed everywhere, even though, more often than not, they might be underground. It was in Asmat, however, that I felt for the first time part of a universal clan, for Asmat culture in some regions not only allowed for sexual relationships between men, but demanded that no male be without his male companion, no matter how many wives he had or how many women he might be sleeping with. Who can know what it meant to me to find myself in a group where I was no different from others in that one way? The powerful words of Tobias Schneebaum, gay Jewish anthropologist who studied many cultures for years. A man was officially diagnosed with cancer in his chest. In the hospital, he had a collapsed lung with over 8 quarts of bloody fluid. He had not shit for 5 days. He heard about drinking piss to heal our bodies, and after he drank his piss, he had 5 large shits. Incredible relief. The fluid in the lungs went away. Doctors were amazed, removed his chest tube. The doctors wanted to continue with chemo and radiation and surgery, but the man left the hospital. His parents were told he had 4 months to live, but 2 years later, he was still alive. He had used colonics to clear and clean his large intestine. Colonics are kind of like enemas. This man had taken herbs, but he was convinced that drinking his piss and applying piss to his skin saved his life from cancer. I have drunk my piss for health every day since November 10th, 1999. I drink 2 cups of my piss every day, and I aim to do this until the day I die. In the Vietnam War, the United States used white phosphorus, napalm, chemical agents on the Vietnamese people and their land for almost 10 years. The U.S. sprayed Agent Orange poison 19 million gallons, 19 million gallons on over 3,000 villages. This damn poison, Agent Orange, causing awful sickness and birth defects in many Vietnamese people, and awful sickness in U.S. soldiers. And I spoke with one veteran of the Vietnam War just this past Sunday. He suffers from neuropathy, diabetes, has 160% disability. The U.S. companies Monsanto, Dow, and Uniroyal made the deadly poison Agent Orange to sicken and to kill our sisters and brothers in Vietnam. The U.S. dropped 8 million tons of bombs. 8 million tons of bombs on Vietnam. 3 times all the bombs dropped by both sides in World War II. The 8 million tons of bombs the U.S. dropped on Vietnam equal to 640 of the atom bombs the U.S. dropped on Hiroshima. 3 to 5 million people, most of them not soldiers, the U.S. murdered in Vietnam, plus many more in Laos, Thailand, Cambodia. The U.S. government told U.S. soldiers, shoot anything that moves. The U.S. government celebrated the high numbers of Vietnamese people that U.S. soldiers murdered. How can anyone with any conscience support the horrible atrocities of this government? From the black people who were enslaved, the millions of black people enslaved, to the mass murder of Native Americans, the stealing of their homelands, and the many, many wars to this very moment. Our personal demons are our unmet needs. Our needs that have never been met are our personal demons. Also, our unhealed memories, awful memories that have never healed. These are our personal demons. And many U.S. soldiers who killed people in Vietnam, or in Afghanistan or Iraq, suffer from these terrible, bloody memories. We need to invest our time, our energy, our passion in what we enjoy, in what we do well, and what is good for people and for our Mother Earth. To do what no one else here is doing in our own unique way. To find our spot in making our small corner of the earth a little better. Do most college graduates live more wisely than minimum wage workers who never went to high school? Do most college graduates travel less, pollute less, cause less climate chaos? Do most college graduates consume less, live more simply and fairly in our world family of almost 8 billion people? Do most college graduates take strong public stands against U.S. greed and wars? Do most college graduates take jobs that help more than harm people? Do most college graduates pay less federal income tax for U.S. wars? Gandhi said what worried him most was the hardness of heart of the educated. Hundreds of highly educated scientists at Sandia and Los Alamos National Labs spend decades of their lives designing nuclear weapons for mass murder. As long as the main motive for many students to get a college degree is to get much more money than anyone needs, to get much bigger power and worldly prestige, higher education is no sure path to a better world. Hell no. A better world of fairness and compassion for all people. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in this world. He said, my life is my message. I, Don Schrader, was a college dropout. I got good grades, but I got bored with the deadlines of so many pages to read and so many pages to write and sitting in a classroom. So I dropped out. But in the University of Life, I constantly collect wisdom from everyone, from books, from experiences, on how to live and how not to live. I collect wisdom not just to store it in my brain or to talk about it or write about it. I collect wisdom in order to live it as best I can every day. I drink no booze. Booze has devastated the lives of many of my dear friends. Booze causes car crashes, paralyzing and killing thousands of people. Booze causes awful family fights, ruined romances, horrible holiday memories. I do not want to make it easier for me to say or to do things I later will terribly regret. Men wake up in jail not remembering stabbing their wife or their buddy while drunk the night before. And many lean, attractive bodies, males and females, will not stay lean and attractive if they keep on boozing and eating junk food. Booze lowers immunity to disease, including COVID. Booze harms the whole body, the heart, the blood vessels, kidneys, liver, stomach, brain, nerves. Booze increases the risk of catching sexually transmitted diseases from infected partners. Did your doctor ever tell you that? Hell no. Both booze and cigarettes lower the sex hormone testosterone, causing men, especially as they get older, to not get good hard-ons. Which booze or cigarette ads tell you that? Why would sex-loving persons consume something that lowers our sex hormone? And women need testosterone also, not as much as men, but they need it. If the most good-looking, hot, sexy man in Albuquerque has to drink booze to drown his shame and guilt in order to make love with me, my answer is no, thank you. Many smart, hardworking people start out as social drinkers, end up sick, lonely alcoholics, dying young. I think of two dear friends of mine, Meme Villegas in Sterling, Illinois, Steve Martinez here in Albuquerque. Both died from the damn booze years before their time. I think both were 59. I urge all musicians, stop singing words in English and in Spanish, glamorizing booze. Poison words, glamorizing booze, jealousy, so-called cheating, contaminate many beautiful, heart-touching melodies. I love the melodies, but I hate many of the words. Community leaders and parents set a public example. Live sober. Drink no booze. Pledge publicly to drink no booze the rest of your life. Imagine if all the money that people in this country spend on booze went instead to help homeless children worldwide. Imagine if all the land used to grow grapes and grain to make booze was used instead to grow healthy food for hungry people. I enjoy deep conversations. I enjoy warmly hugging men and women friends. I enjoy dancing up a storm to beautiful music, and I drink no damn booze. Live passionately with no booze poisoning our minds and our bodies. We can be free in spirit and in body, and much healthier with no booze in our bellies. My fresh piss. Thanks for listening, and I welcome you to stop me anytime on the street if you see me walking to talk. Not to give me a ride, but to talk. Thank you.
Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun